If my devils are to leave me, I am afraid my angels might take flight as well, Rilke once wrote in a letter. The devil or Satan comes from the Greek word diabolos. Diabolic is the term in English. Diabolos means to literally tear apart, diaboline. I am improvising the pronunciation here, don't take it for granted. Now, but what is fascinating is that the antonym to diabolic is symbolic, symboline, which means to unite, to throw together. I think in these words lies a tremendous implication to the ontology of good and evil. The symbolic is that which grows together, which ties us and integrates the person in himself and in the group. The diabolic, in contrast, is that which disintegrates and tears apart. Both of these are present in the daimonic, a term which is lost in our times, so I will expand on it. The daimonic is any natural function which has the power to take over a person. It is the urge in every being to assert and affirm itself. Sex and eros, anger and rage, and the crave for power are all good examples. The demonic can be either creative or destructive, but is usually both. All life can be seen as a flux between these two parts of the demonic. When this power goes awry and one element usurps the total control of personality, we have demonic possession, which is the traditional name throughout history for psychosis. The demonic is obviously not an entity, but refers to a fundamental and archetypal function of human experience. It is an existential reality. In essence, the demonic refers to the power of nature and thus is beyond good and evil. The deteriorated form of this concept, consisting of little devils with horns flying around, is a projection of inner experience outward. In archaic Greece, the term daimon was used interchangeably with theos and had a meaning very similar to that of fate. Like fate, it was never used in plural before Plato. One has a fate just as one has a daimon. It reflects a condition of human experience that we all inherit. I find it incredibly admirable the union of good and evil that the Greeks achieved in their concept of the daimon. For them, it was a bridge between the divine and the human and shared in both. To live in accord with one's daimon, the term is eudaimonism, is difficult but profoundly rewarding. It is natural drive in its starkest form, but a drive which a man being conscious of can assimilate and integrate and at least partly direct. The demonic destroys purely rationalistic plans and opens up the person to creative possibilities he did not know he possessed in the first place. In the Hellenistic and Christian eras, the split between the good and the evil became more pronounced. Though such developments are never fully rationalized, there must have existed in those days an expectation that with this split it would be easier for man to conquer the devils. But if something is gained by this split, much is also lost. And what is lost is the concept of being as combining both the good and destructive possibilities. The dichotomy between devils and angels was carried on throughout the Middle Ages, and the word for demonic now has clearly deteriorated to only demonic. For many of us today, the world consists of two camps, devils on the side of Satan and angels on the side of God. In essence, a polarized reality. Mental illness, for example, in many theories is understood as a failure to integrate parts of yourself or your experience. Schizophrenia literally means a split psyche. One seeks to choose a side and be only good and only moral in the context of that group, and deny the so-called temptations and fight vehemently against the other side. It seems that it is always man's proclivity to define the stranger, the outsider, the one different from him as the devil and himself as on the side of the angels. So, fully aware of the risk of blasphemy, I still must ask this question. Should the devil in yourself then be integrated and accepted rather than conquered? Originally an archangel, Satan is given the specific name of adversary. He is the one who tempts Eve in the garden. But when we look more closely, we can see that Satan is much more than a mere adversary. He enlisted the help of the snake in the garden, which is clearly a demonic element of nature. In Eden, Satan is the embodiment of the demonic of lust and the desire for power by means of knowledge, which will make man immortal like God. The Lord rebuked Adam and Eve for eating of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil and was concerned lest they would now try to eat of the tree of the eternal life. This drama is a symbolic representation of the urge for lust and for power, and Satan is the symbol who embodies these urges. Satan, Lucifer, and all the other demonic figures which were once archangels are psychologically necessary. They had to be invented, had to be created in order to make human action and freedom possible. Otherwise, there would be no consciousness. For every thought destroys as it creates. To think this thing is to cut out another thing. To say yes to this is to say no to that. And to perceive this thing, I have to shut out all the rest. For consciousness works by way of either or. It is constructive and destructive at the same time. So without rebellion, no consciousness. And I believe the story of Adam and Eve fully well knows this. Thus, the hope that Satan and the other adversaries could be gotten rid of by a gradual progress towards perfection would not be a constructive idea even if it were possible, and it is obviously not possible. The saints were not talking nonsense when they called themselves the greatest sinners. The goal of perfectibility is a bastardized concept smuggled into from technology into ethics, and results from the confusion between the two. One trouble with the devils and angels cosmic scheme, and it is a formidable difficulty, is that angels are such bland and uninteresting creatures. They are by definition sexless, and they take the form of Cupid, which is Eros in its most deteriorated form, because love and aggression cannot be separated, but that's a topic for a whole nother video. Angels now seem to have the function of chiefly flying around and delivering messages, sort of like a celestial FedEx. They're relatively powerless creatures except for a few archangels like Michael. So angels are boring, yes, until they fall. Then they take on fascination and interest. Lucifer, the fallen angel, then becomes the dynamic hero of Milton's Paradise Lost, which marks an important change in history. When an angel assumes independent self-assertion, call it pride or whatnot, he then takes on power and the capacity to take on our attention and even admiration. It asserts its own being, its own choice, its own individual lust. If we think of symbolic representations like Lucifer as exemplifying some significant urge in the psyche, call it growth, let's say, then this assertion of independent choice is surely a positive aspect of that growth. The child who's a little angel for too long is the one we actually should worry about. The little devil running around at least gives us hope of future potential developments. The fallen angel is the one who takes on some of the power of the demonic, which is lost in our dualistic view of the world. Rilke is right then in wanting to retain his angels and his devils, for both are necessary. Both make up the demonic. And who's to say that Rilke's devils do not contribute as much as or even more than his angels? Rollo May, in his book Love and Will, which this video is based on, suggests that the rediscovery of the demonic as a power beyond good and evil was due to the anti-rational cult of genius at the end of the 18th century. The elderly Goethe was continuously enthralled with the demonic and discussed it at length, and also believed it was due to this force that he met Schiller. This path of rediscovery continued on in the 19th century, namely by people like Nietzsche and Dostoevsky. But it was with psychotherapy that the demonic surged into popular conscious, namely with Freud and especially Carl Jung. Although whether this was just a blip in history or an idea to stay is up to debate. In more recent times, Paul Tillich has been the one chiefly responsible for bringing the demonic to our attention again. There's a great story about Tillich with which I will end this video. A schizophrenic woman on the edge of a breakdown went to see him and explained the demons as she experienced them. Unperturbed, Tillich responded, "Every morning between 7 and 10, I live with the demons."